Welcome back to Empower Hour. I'm your host, and today we're in for a real treat. You know, leadership in the nonprofit world isn't for the faint of heart. It's like trying to navigate whitewater rapids while simultaneously building the raft, inspiring your crew, and making sure everyone's paddling in sync. That's why I'm thrilled to welcome today's guest, who has not only navigated those rapids, but has taught others how to turn turbulence into momentum. Dr. Cheryl Lovell is the CEO and President of Lovell for Success, where she provides executive coaching and consulting that transforms how organizations approach leadership, strategic planning, and organizational effectiveness. As a certified strengths coach with Gallup, Dr. Lovell has that rare gift of helping people discover their talents hiding in plain sight. You know, those superpowers we often take for granted in ourselves, but that can revolutionize our impact when properly harnessed. Dr. Lovell is also trained facilitator in speed of trust through Franklin Covey, helping leaders build that precious currency that no budget line item can replace, genuine trust. Dr. Lovell served as president of both Adams State University and Rocky Vista University and held leadership positions across public and private universities, state agencies, and nonprofit organizations. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cheryl Lovell to Empower Hour. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Carina. That's embarrassing to hear all of that stuff about me, but thank you.
You are one of the most impressive people I've ever met. And when you said yes to being on this podcast, I was so excited because I know nonprofit leaders and staff will really take a lot away from your teachings today. And so thank you for joining. Obviously, you've had a career span over 35 years, leadership across universities, state agencies, and nonprofit organizations. What initially drew you to leadership, and how has your approach evolved over the decades?
I'm not sure that I made a conscious choice to be a leader. I found myself, even on the playground, being the one who would speak up when something went wrong. I'd be the one that people put in front of others to speak for the group. I'd be the one that sort of raised my hand when I saw something wrong and I wanted to right it or wanted to change something. I've not been afraid to sort of jump in. And I think I've lived my life with the motto, leave things, leave the place, leave everything in a better place than the way I found it. So I've just not intentionally said I'm a leader and want to be a leader. It's just evolved from a very young age where people saw it in me before I even recognized it myself.
Well, that's incredible. Yeah, I've known you for, I think, about 16 years. And I think
least. Yeah.
Leader would be definitely the way I would describe you as an ethical leader, even more so. And so appreciate it. I'm glad that you were called into the leadership realm and that you've done so much good in the world and continue to do great stuff. Before we dive deeper, could you share with our nonprofit listeners one leadership lesson that took you years to learn, but now seems fundamental to your approach?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a lesson, but I always tell people I mentor and coach that it's not as easy as it looks. Leadership is hard and a lot of preparation is required to be an effective leader. And it doesn't happen overnight. I think it's something that evolves in terms of my own skills have evolved over the years. And I try to instill that in others. But I think the one thing that I come back to a lot is be authentic. That would be the advice. And for an introvert like me, authenticity sometimes is hard to come through because I'm closed in some ways personally, so that authenticity doesn't come out. And I've learned over the years to really feel more comfortable and feel more open to let that true Cheryl come out. So be authentic, I think, in a nutshell.
I've definitely seen that with my own eyes of kind of a progression of when I first started to get to know you to where our relationship is now, and how you're just so real. And I just appreciate that about you. And I think that's such a tip for people, is that, you know, in order to be a strong leader is you need to be authentic. And so I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. As a certified strengths coach with Gallup, you help individuals and organizations maximize their talents. How can leaders identify and leverage the unique skills or strengths within their own often diverse, resource-constrained teams?
Yeah. With the Clifton Strength Program, the goal is to find out what's right with someone. So that's a great premise to work from, is that we're going to talk about what's right with you. And to do that, to find out what's right, there's an assessment. So for individuals to find out their strengths and their raw talents, that's the first step, is to know them, identify them, know them, and then to understand them at a really deep level, and to realize that some strengths can be a liability in certain situations. So understanding their positive and negative aspects to a raw talent, and that will, used over time, become a strength, that there are some drawbacks to them. So you have to really know them and understand them really well to know when they're effective to use. I always describe the strengths, the talents, the 34 talents that you find out through the Clifton Strength Assessment, that they're like tools in a toolbox. When do you pull out which tools to use in what setting? So I think you have to, again, identify them, know them, understand them at a deep level, and you have to use them. You have to use them and aim them in a way that makes your work effective. I know when I work with clients, I develop something that I call a strengths calendar, where I have folks to identify the really key meetings they have, or key situations they're dealing with, or key people they need to meet, and to identify when it's going to happen, identify what they're trying to accomplish, and then to identify which strengths would be helpful to accomplish that.
Love that.
So again, there's a lot of identification and knowledge building with the strengths, so you can maximize your strengths, to use them appropriately and to use them effectively in given situations.
Do you work, like when you are hired to help organization, do you work individually with each person on their strengths, or how does that work?
Yeah, both. Generally, on an individual level first. If a team is taking the assessment and they all are trying to identify their strengths, try to meet with each person individually first, so they have their own understanding of what the labels mean and what the terms mean for their strengths, and take some time for them to process it. What surprised you about the assessment results? What did you see that you think, oh my goodness, I'm just completely identified in this report. They nailed me. They got it right. And then sometimes people are going like, this doesn't sound like me at all. And maybe I don't understand the report, so help me. So getting to that individual understanding, I think, is really helpful first. And then as a team, having them present their strengths, their raw talents to their teammates, to the other members of the group, and then to understand each member's strengths. That is really critical. Getting that deep understanding of, I was wondering why they processed it that way. That made no sense to me. It really frustrated me, the way they handled the situation. And you find out, that's their talent. That's the natural way that they tend to do things. And to know that, and to be able to understand it in the context of how they use those talents at work, is really helpful. So getting individual strengths known first, and then working within the team to build up that understanding of each other, of themselves and each other.
I bet there's a lot of aha moments in that.
There is. Then now they have a language to use to describe it, or to understand it, and to appreciate what their colleagues are bringing to the team.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We're all made different. And once we understand each other, we can communicate differently to approach someone when we go, oh, well, their strength is such and such, and I need to come in at a different angle. So I love that. We often see nonprofit leaders trying to be everything to everyone. How might a strengths-based approach help leaders delegate more effectively and prevent burnout?
Yeah, I think the quick answer is that if you know the strengths of the members of the team, delegation of tasks can follow those strengths. So things that you know someone doesn't like doing or doesn't do well, maybe someone else can do those who do them well, who does them well. And then having that understanding allows delegation to take place at a smoother level. It's not that I don't like that, so therefore I don't do it. I don't think we have the luxury in the workplace to say that. But to know what those innate talents are of the team members can help a leader differentiate the task in an appropriate way. And I think if people are in a situation where they love what they're doing, that burden of doing it is less. And that affect associated with it is less, which means there should be less burnout. There should be some, I'm in my groove here. I'm doing what I want to do, and I like doing this, and I'm doing it well. Look at this. So the burnout aspects are not really as present in those kind of settings where people are matched with their talents and tasks.
That makes sense. Would a leader be wise to take two people with clearly different strengths, but that would benefit each other and put them together on a project?
Sometimes that's really helpful. Yeah, if you know that someone is much more strategically oriented and they tend to make decisions and approach tasks from a strategic standpoint, and then someone is completely relationship building focused. Having those two people together could be a really good benefit, because the strategic aspects that someone is wanting to put in place will work much more effectively if the people relational aspects are considered. So those two can be a good blend, often if you're more relationship building versus strategic building.
Yeah, I love that. I think that, a lot of organizations could flourish using that approach. Well, you work with a lot of organizations. Could you walk us through a specific example where you've seen a struggling nonprofit team transform after implementing a strengths-based approach?
Yeah. In fact, I just had a call yesterday with a group of clients where I'm working with the organization to implement a strength-based approach. They are struggling. They're not meeting their goals. They feel like they're floundering in some ways, and they don't feel like they have the cohesion that they want. And they realize that they're kind of missing the mark in terms of delivering what they said they were going to do. So I will often, almost always, start with the leader, the executive director, the CEO, the president, whatever the person's title is, to start with that person and to make sure he or she understands her strengths and knows what they mean at a really deep level, and knows when they're present and when they're not present, when she or he can see them at work, and when they are intentional about getting that tool out of the toolbox and bringing it. When they can talk about it and see themselves doing that, they've got it. They know what it looks like. So I really work with the leader first to make sure he or she is grounded. Mm-hmm. Yesterday happened to be a she as a president, and she was ready to move to her executive team, which is great. We're working with the executive team now to make sure they individually understand their raw talents and strengths. And the next session is to meet with them as a group to make sure they know each other's. And so working with that, this particular client at a beginning level of it, and working them through the flow of from leader to team, and then the team living this strength-based organization where they are honoring and respecting each other's talents and strengths, and they're using them in a very visible way. Then the rest of the organization will be involved. There are about 30 other team members that aren't executives who will be engaged in this strength-based process. So I'm on the front end with that group, and that's the process of how I typically go from the leader to the executive team to the rest of the staff. And what I've seen in the past with other clients, this one is at the beginning stage, so we haven't seen that transformation yet. But what I've seen with other nonprofit groups and other for-profit groups, that once they get that team and organization-wide understanding of strengths, they have a greater confidence in what they're doing, which brings them a greater satisfaction, typically. And that greater satisfaction allows them to question what they're doing as an organization in a fundamental way, because they have the confidence of, I understand me, I understand you, I understand what our organization is about. How are we not nailing it? What do we need to do? So that it gives them the confidence from the self-reflection to the team reflection, to think about it as an organizational reflection. And why are we struggling? Why are we not meeting our stakeholder goals? Why are we not, providing the services in a timely way that community members are expecting? They can start to answer those questions with a lot of confidence that they didn't have before. So that stopping for the self-reflection, the team reflection, the organizational reflection allows them to ask those tough questions about performance and what they're delivering.
Yeah, I love that. I remember when I took the assessment, and it was funny because my number one was learner, and number two, I'm sure this will surprise you, was achiever, and then I was belief and futuristic. I remember my top four, and I was like, it's kind of stayed with me.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact I can even spout off and even remember it, and it was several years ago, but I didn't even think of myself as a learner. But now after that, I was like, oh my gosh, all I do is study. I'm learning. I'm trying to figure out best practices, making better practices.
Yeah.
And I felt like it helped me know who I was, even though I am me. I mean, why wouldn't I know who I am? But I really felt that that was a strength in itself of me going, that is an asset. That is a skill set. And I need to lean in on that. And so I love that. I'd be curious to ask you what are a few of your strengths?
Number one is self-assurance. And I often misinterpret that. And a lot of people do. They think it means self-confidence and self-identity and clarity about that. But what it really means is that I have an internal compass and an internal system of being that allows me to see the way through. And so self-assurance is about a compass and a direction of knowing what true north is and knowing what is the right way, the right direction. That's number one. It happens to be out of the 34 talents, there are 33 million, over 33 million around the globe who've taken the Clifton Strength Assessment. Taking the entire population that's ever taken it, it's number 34. It's the least.
Oh wow!
The least frequently found.
You are a rare breed.
Command and self-command is another talent. One of the themes. Command and self-assurance kind of go neck and neck. 1 year there's 34, self-assurance 34. 1 year command is 34, and self-assurance is 33. So it's not. It is rare, to have self-assurance, especially as number one. Learner is there as well. I'm constantly learning. And if you look at my Amazon book order, you'll see that I order a lot of books.
Me too.
And so I'm constantly gathering, inputting material to learn. I'm always about how to build a better mousetrap. So there's a way to learn that. I fixed a toilet the other day by looking something up.
Look at you.
That's what I said. This cracked me up. I'm over there turning this thing in the back of the toilet. And I'm going like, what? Darn it, I'm a learner. Look at this.
I love it. It's so great.
I'll give you the rest. Self-assurance, learner. I use these every day. Achiever, arranger, and relationships, relationship building. So relator, it's called. So those are my top five. And I see them in various ways all through my life. So that's what they are.
That's great. I could have probably picked those out for you too, which is so great. When you know somebody really well, you probably could figure out what it is.
Sometimes, yeah.
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 I knew achiever was going to be in your top five for sure. So
Well, arranger, actually, I use so much. And it's funny, as a high school student, I was the student conductor of our orchestra. And that's an arranger. I'm conducting. Yep. The trombones are doing this, the bassoons are doing this, the violins, the trumpets, the French horns, percussionists, they're all doing different things. And I'm arranging and conducting that. And they're doing different things. But what I learned is that if we're not on the same time with the same beat, it's all off, right?
Right.
So we can all be doing different things, but if we're not following the same time, it's all off. And I liken that to leading an organization. If we're not on the same script with the same mission, things are not working well. And even though different divisions and teams are doing things separately and differently, it all should add up. And I see that conducting so much in my professional life that I didn't realize as a student conductor of the orchestra in high school that I was developing that arranger skill even then.
Wow, you were born with it. Let's get real.
One of those things about an organization and in helping an organization become strength-based that I think is so critical is to make sure we develop strength champions in the organization who leave after I leave, who are there rather after I leave. So those strength champions are the ones that are going to advocate, promote, and encourage people to make sure as even newcomers come on, they take the assessment, and then they're the ones that help train other people in the organization to carry on the strengths language and the strengths approach. So I always want someone to carry it on. I don't want them dependent on me. I want the organization to be able to live this themselves. So developing part of that process of getting to the whole organization is to make sure that there's a small team of willing leaders to carry this on.
That's a great idea. So would you recommend to somebody to hire based on strengths? Would you say they take the assessment before they pick who it is going to be the final candidate that gets the job?
No.
Okay.
It's not a screening tool for hiring. It's not a hiring decision tool.
Okay.
It's a tool you definitely want everyone in the organization to take, and as new people come on to take it, but it's not intended to be a screening tool for hiring. It's an informative tool for you to understand how this person's going to think, behave, and how they believe. Those kind of characteristics come out of the Clifton Strength Assessment through the themes, but it's not intended to be a screening tool.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. And when you do the full assessment and your 34th, whatever strength, is that a weakness?
The language in Clifton Strengths is that they're lesser talents, and I would call them weaknesses in some way. All 34 represent you. They're just in different hierarchical order. Those at the bottom of the list are less prevalent, less seen, less known sometimes by us. So if you don't know what they are, they're clearly weaknesses. They're clearly things that are about you that you're not understanding and you're not tapping when you need them. So I tend to call them lesser talents. They're all 34 are you, but they're not that prevalent. They're not the ready. I think of them in thirds. They're dominant signature strengths, which is usually top 5 definitely is a signature strengths. But 10 through 12 probably could be dominant that you see and effortlessly can develop over time. The middle group, I call them supporting themes or supporting strengths. They're part of you. You see them occasionally. There's not an everyday occurrence. And then the bottom are those lesser talents that we need to know what those are, because if we have them and we're not aware of what they are, we could misuse them. They can become a handicap to us or inhibit us from being successful.
Yeah, and you can work on actually growing them into a stronger strength for you.
Yeah. You know, Don Clifton would say, if you can nail your top 5 and live that every day, you're going to be successful. You've got it. And knowing your dominant strengths, the 1 through 10 or 12, if you just play to your strengths, these are things that are right with you and use those. Be aware of what's at the bottom. It's not a situation of trying to fix some things or work on weaknesses. It's about amplifying the strengths you have.
That's really well told. I love that. Yeah. I think that's going to help a lot of people really think, because so many people go to weaknesses versus strengths, and he's really set this program up to be about what are your assets.
What are your assets? What's right with you, and use those, and be aware of the things that are less prevalent, so they don't get in the way. But it's not about trying to fix them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So you're trained in speed of trust methodology as well. Yeah. Through Franklin Covey, been around for years, and in the nonprofit world where trust with donors, communities, and staff is paramount, What are the most common trust-breaking behaviors you've observed?
Yeah, there are a lot of them, but can I start by saying trust? Talk about trust for a bit, because trust is important. It's both a noun and a verb. It's not just a person, place, or thing. It's an action as well. And Stephen Covey talks about trust in terms of it's a part of your character and a part of your competence. So it's that integrity piece and your ability to deliver on what you say you're going to do. So it's a character and a competency piece. Those two together allow you to display your trust. The opposite of trust is suspicion. So having a trusting organization means that people are living a life of integrity and presenting themselves in a competent way, and they're accomplishing what they're supposed to. It's hard to trust someone who doesn't do their job. It's hard to trust someone who doesn't follow through. It's hard to trust someone who you just don't know if they're going to be able to deliver. So trust is a competency, a deliverable, as well as a character. And so those two together are the kind of trust that Franklin Covey talks about in The Speed of Trust. Trust is part of the strategy and the execution. Without trust, the strategy and execution can't be successful. The results and the outcomes are not there. It takes longer for work to get done, and the outcome is not done efficiently, so it costs more. And whether it's cost in terms of real production cost or cost in terms of time. So low trust, longer to get things accomplished, and higher cost. On the other side, when there's high trust, there's shortcuts to things because people trust each other. They know someone's going to do their part. They're going to work on that part, and someone else is going to do something else. And they know they can count on each other. It's going to be done well. So the speed of work is shortened, and the costs are also not as much. So trust factors in terms of getting work done in an efficient way and getting things done well. The things that people, where the wheels come off with trust, I think is one way to say it. People aren't talking openly to each other. There's no straight talk, what Franklin Covey would call straight talk. They don't have respect for one another, and that doesn't allow them to keep and develop trust. They don't know how to apologize when things go wrong. That right the wrong isn't prevalent sometimes. So trust is broken. And the focus on what the organization is about, that reality of what we're about, and knowing that and understanding that and communicating that to all the members is so critical to establishing trust and making sure they have that understanding. So the trust is about individual trust and showing up with that credibility, that integrity, and confidence in terms of performance. There's relation trust, there's organizational trust. All of those factor into trust for an organization that will impact their ability to be successful.
Yeah, I've got to think, with trust, there's greater psychological safety.
Yes.
At work, in relationships. And, it goes both ways, where if you don't trust your leader, but if you don't trust the staff who might be toxic and undermining, what are ways to help overcome that? Yeah,
trust has to be a conversation. I've worked with some groups where we're trying to establish trust. In fact, I had a consulting project 2 years ago with a team that they weren't syncing. They knew it, and the leader knew it, and they had an argument about who was supposed to do something at an executive team level. And the CEO called me, and he said, "I don't know if this is trust that's broken or what." He said, "Do you mind coming in and just talking about trust and talking about what trust looks like?" So we had this conversation: high trust, low trust, the trust tax, the things that burden the organization, and the trust dividends, the things that go well when trust is high. And they were all shaking their head, nodding, going, yeah. And then when I put up some examples of how trust is broken, and I started working through some of the examples, and finally someone said, can I add to that? Because I think that one's a real one and for them. And he goes on and explains, well, this is what happened last week. And this is the same thing that happened a couple of weeks ago. And it's really frustrating for my team when your team isn't doing their part. And then the person whose team allegedly wasn't doing their part started talking about, well, we were basing our actions on, something else. And then they explained that. And they were both going like, wow, we had no idea this was going on. So where is that other thing coming from? And then there were 12 of them. They all started scratching their heads. And the leader says, well, wait a minute. Isn't that the thing that I said we were going to do and that we were going to implement, and you all were going to be able to take advantage of that because we were going to take care of that? And they all look at him and go, yeah. And he goes, oh my goodness, we never did that, did we? And so he was upset that they weren't trusting each other. Well, it turns out they weren't trusting him, and he hadn't followed through. So in all of his efficiency to get things done, he never did what he was supposed to do, which made the wheels come off, so to speak, for all the other teams. And when they sat there and had this conversation and they go, okay, let's go back to what our standard operating procedures are supposed to be. And let's get clarity about that. And let's get clear about accountability for those things. And let's get clear about what we can expect of each other and what we can count on. And they walked away from that meeting going, holy moly, how did we let this happen? And the CEO was so embarrassed. He was profusely apologizing for me coming to help them when it was his lack of follow through and his lack of accountability that actually caused the problem where the team started falling apart. So it was a simple conversation in some ways, but it was a deep conversation for him to realize he had to hold himself accountable and he had to follow through on things. And no matter how busy he thought he was as a CEO, when he said he was going to do something for the teams, he needed to do them so they could do their jobs effectively.
When there's missteps in an organization and things aren't syncing properly, do you go in and actually help them during that process?
I have. Usually it's after there's been bloodshed.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of hurt feelings and there's been a lot of angst about something, and people aren't willing to talk about it because they don't even trust each other to have the conversation. So it's a good time to take a pause and have someone from the outside come in and ask those prodding, nudging kind of questions that they all know what they are that should be asked, but they're afraid to do it. So having someone come in from the outside to ask those, it gives them the freedom to be a participant in the discussion and not driving the discussion, which is helpful sometimes.
I can see that. And so your approach is bringing them all together always?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just having that straight talk. I think that's the main thing is, there's things that probably was minor that is not now exploded into something major that had they just done straight talk to begin with, they wouldn't be in that position.
Yeah. If it's a pervasive kind of lack of trust in the person who's contacted me, if it's the leader or a senior executive, I'll ask a lot of questions. How long has this been going on? Where do you think it started? What do you think's, contributing to this? Why haven't, what have you done to try to address it? And if it's a situation of a lot of, I don't know, I'm not sure, I just kind of walked into this environment. I will sometimes do an assessment, what I would call a needs assessment, where I interview individual members individually of the executive team and to get their lens of what's happening, because they're all describing the same big elephant. They just got a different piece of it in front of them. So by talking with them individually gives them a little bit of safety, especially if this is deeply felt and been going on a while, that individual safety to be able to speak freely is helpful. So interviewing people on the team individually and then getting a sense of, they are talking about the same elephant. They just have different lenses, and it gives me a chance to think about how to have the conversation as a group. So again, often I'll do individual interviews first.
That's great. So when you've identified that there's a disconnect, how do you encourage the participants, as you call them, to remove the ego in the room?
Yeah. I think you have to set some boundaries and set some norms of collaboration and agree to those at the beginning. And agree to being honest and open and receptive to hearing feedback. It's always easy to say, I think you all are doing X, Y, and Z. It's harder for someone to sit back and tell you, no, you're doing A, B, C, and this is why it's not helpful. So they have to be open to giving feedback and open, especially open to receiving that.
So you really set the stage for that at the beginning.
Yeah, we try to set some guidelines and some rules of the game and what's fair to happen in the conversation and what's not fair, what's not appropriate. Yelling, screaming, calling people names, some obvious things. Sometimes it's helpful just to say, hey, we're not going to do these things, right? And what else do you not want to do? And what do you want to do? So I'll throw out some things at the beginning and then ask them to add some additional things to that list of the rules.
It's so smart. I love that so much. I think that would be really beneficial, for, anyone listening to actually apply this just in their daily leadership role. It sounds so simple.
It is, but
right?
also hard.
And it's so hard.
It is,
right?
yeah.
Because you have to have vulnerability in the process to really be receptive to hear what you could be working on. Because there's no one perfect, right? So everybody's on a journey of, figuring out how to be the best they can. And so I think that you want to assume positive intent too.
Yes.
I think is probably a key thing.
Yeah.
I know there's 13 behaviors that are create and trust. Maybe you would have a handout we could share with everyone.
Sure.
With that, do you want to kind of go through any of those?
Well,
with
I
us?
talked about some of them already,
Okay.
Carina. The talking straight, telling the truth to each other, demonstrate respect, show you genuinely care, kindness in little things, demonstrate respect. So create transparency, open, authentic. Don't hide information. Some people think information is power, and so to keep the power, they keep the information, and that's really not helpful for a team. Be able to apologize, right the wrongs, show loyalty, give credit to others when credit is due, and be loyal to them even in their absence. So show loyalty, deliver results, again, accomplish what you're supposed to do without making excuses. Get better, learn, improve, be that learner, and be thankful for feedback that you receive. Even if you're not a learner, you can still learn by hearing the feedback people are giving you. And confront reality, which means meet issues head on and address the tough stuff directly. Clarify expectations, practice accountability. That's so hard. I think that's probably one of the more missing things today in society as a whole, and definitely within organizations, is that we don't hold each other accountable. And when people behave badly or make false statements, it just sits there without being challenged sometimes, or without the accountability.
Don't want to rock the boat.
Don't want to rock the boat. And for a lot of reasons, don't want to address the accountability, but it's hard. But practice accountability, listen first. The thing about listening, most of us are listening to say what they're thinking. And that weight for a lot of people isn't listening, it's just not talking. And, that's important to keep in mind, that listening to hear and understand, and not talking and then waiting to reply or waiting to say something else.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can see when there's someone really bad at that too. And you want to say, hey, did you hear me?
Yeah. Hold that thought. Yeah. I often see people just talking over each other, and it's an easy practice to fall into. You get excited about something and you familiar with the people and you just talk really fast and they talk fast and you're like, wait a minute, I don't know if I heard you. Well, no, I didn't hear you either. So they realize that, after the fact. So it's important to kind of slow down and listen for the sake of listening and understanding, and then pause and respond or add to, as opposed to just sitting there going like, when is she going to get through? Come on. I've got something else to say. So the other two, keep commitments and follow through, do what you're going to say you're going to do, and extend trust. It's not just you have to trust me. I have to trust you. And so that extension of trust is important. It's just not, hey, trust me. Look how trustworthy I am. It's, I also trust you, and let me demonstrate that I trust you. So those are the 13 sort of traits of.
Very, very powerful. I love that. And I think that that's so important for trust to exist in an organization. And I can see when it doesn't, how it could really hurt an organization. Do you do follow-up with the organizations that you go in and coach and help with? And what are outcomes that you've seen from this work?
Yeah. I try to always do a post consulting follow-up. And typically it's with the leader, the person who extended the offer for me to come and work with them and find out what's going on. And if it doesn't sound like things are falling into place the way we thought they were, I'll often ask, do you want me to come back and do a 6-month check-in? Do you want me to go back around and circle to each team member? I'm thinking of an executive team, and find out how they're feeling to see if you sound ambivalent, maybe. Should I find out if the others feel that way? Or if you're just still gelling in your mind and you're working on it, but you all haven't arrived yet. So I'll just take it from the leader to see what they want.
That's good. I could see where that's important. And I could see where this would be really helpful in how it would really be able to move a mission forward in a nonprofit. Because, I mean, the work is so important. And you don't want to get in the way of that work by trivial things that could have just been fixed with that straight talk and then the 13 behaviors that everyone could be improving on. So I love that. When we're thinking about developing leadership capacity, you've mentored countless leaders throughout your career. What patterns have you noticed in those who successfully transition from good to truly exceptional leaders?
I think someone who has good people skills, that ability to know how to influence others, that ability to take a group and reach consensus in a positive way, not in a beat them until they beat them into submission, but get to that consensus in a positive way. And someone who can do that without alienating the members of the team or the stakeholders who are depending on them. So I think those people skills are would make up the most critical leadership skills, I think, that are necessary. I think on an operational level, if you're thinking about what are those critical skills for leaders, the day-to-day overview of the budget, the operational view of the budget, where the money comes from, where does it go? And I don't mean at on line 45 of a spreadsheet with 17 columns or 50 columns or whatever, or 1,000 lines. But in a general sense, where's the money coming from and where's it going on a percentage level? So much for people, so much for, supplies. What's the general level? So operating budget, I think, is important. You're not as a CEO or the leader of the group, I'm not the CFO. I'm not the chief financial officer or the accountant. So I don't need to know that micro level information, but knowing how the budget works, inflow, outflow, and having a sense of it on a daily basis. So we're 2/3 of the way through the calendar, but we're more than that in our budget. What does that mean? Do we have to stop and think about what our expenses are going to be for the rest of the year? So having a good sense of working knowledge of the budget, I think, is critical.
I love that. And I think, it is, an exceptional leader is looking at the overall health of the organization. And one area that many people say, that's not my job. I'm not the CFO. So they kind of check out because they don't like analytics. They don't like numbers. That makes them nervous. But it is such a key piece to being an exceptional leader.
If there's no money, there's no capacity to accomplish the mission. So you have to have some working knowledge of the budget, but not the day-to-day operational level of it. I think also that ability to have, when I talk about influencing people, that ability to have crucial conversations when they're necessary. And it's back to the accountability theme I mentioned before. Accountability is so critical. And we do a disservice to people when we allow them to think that they've done a good job when they haven't. It's a disservice to them to reward them for something they didn't do. And frankly, it destroys morale with the rest of the group when they see people who are being rewarded or their lack of follow through and lack of good work is being ignored. That's the accountability piece that's difficult. So
yeah, I think that's key. And I think, as human beings, we want to be liked. And so we choose to be liked versus holding someone accountable. And it can really hurt the culture and the organization.
Yeah.
And it can really be helpful to that person when you hold them accountable because you're doing a disservice to them.
Yeah.
Because they don't even know maybe they aren't meeting the marks that they need to be meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. I've often almost felt envious of some leaders of when I was in mid-level, when I had other comparable leaders around the table. And, some of them would be so liked and so well loved by their team members. And I'm like, what did they do to make that happen? And often it was that they didn't really follow through with anyone.
I've seen that.
They often didn't care what their team was doing. And so the team loved them because they could do anything and it was fine. I'm like, I'm not sure that's the kind of leader I want to be.
Exactly.
So,
I always say that, I didn't hire you to have you not work out.
Yeah.
I'm obviously on your side. I want this to work out, but these are the areas that you need to be working on. And so I do think that that's a blessing to anyone that hears that necessary feedback for their own personal growth. And if they don't accept it, that's disappointing.
Yeah. And you said it, it's not easy to give that feedback and it's uncomfortable and it's difficult. And I think it's important to keep all of that in mind when you're giving the feedback, is that I know if I were hearing this would be tough. So how do I need to communicate this in a way that allows dignity and respect?
Absolutely.
But also gets at the follow through and accountability we as an organization needed. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such a key tip for any leader on their growth journey is, I failed miserably over the years. I look back and I go, man, I should have addressed that. I should have done that different and then grow and learn from it. And I think that is one of the things that creates an exceptional leader is definitely somebody that is willing to have the tough conversations.
Yeah.
And
to have them both ways for the leader, as the leader to hear that.
I agree.
I remember when I left my last presidency, I was struck with the first couple of months of being home, how wrong I was. And I'm like, this is a kind of an interesting phenomena. I'm wrong on this. I was wrong on this yesterday. I was wrong on this last week. And I really had to stop myself and go, what is going on? I'm not used to being wrong. So what's changed? And I think it was the lack of team members not willing to tell me, hey, President, that's a dumb idea. Or, hey, President, have you thought about how that may, influence something else? Or have you thought in a constructive way? So that fear of giving feedback to the leader too is there. Because I've thought, I'm not wrong that much, am I? But wow, I was wrong. And what I was around people who weren't afraid to tell me I was wrong.
It's true.
But in the role as the leader, as the president, it's hard to tell that president that, can we rethink that? Are you sure? Or do you want to, rehash the decision about that? And I think that feedback is important both ways. So for staff members and all the leaders, mid-level, senior leaders, to also be able to receive feedback as well as giving that feedback.
I agree. I think because of, your vulnerability and talking about areas that you see, wow, I didn't do that well. You probably are one of the best coaches that anyone could have, because somebody who comes in and says, you know what, I've done everything right. And, I had no mistakes and you should follow my way. And that is a bad consultant and coach to have on your team.
Yeah. Battle tested, I say sometimes.
Like
definitely have experienced the joys of leadership and the sorrows of leadership. So, and it does allow me to see things in other leaders and to give them an opportunity to hear it in a confidential way and in a growth focused feedback way.
I've done that. Yeah. Don't do that. Well, I love, your posts on LinkedIn and whatnot, and you talk about work-life balance. And that is something I never knew. And I wish that I had known that over the years. And I love how you're really bringing that to light. And, you bring in nonprofit workers and they're very passionate people and they're prone to overextending themselves. And that's why you've got burnout in the nonprofit sector in a huge way. And as someone who has held numerous demanding leadership positions, such as yourself, what practices have helped you maintain that personal sustainability?
I firmly believe of life outside of work. And I think we need hobbies and interests and activities that sustain us beyond work. Work can't be everything. And it's an important lesson to learn that a leader cannot allow her entire identity to be just that leader. There needs to be something else. I'm also a firm believer of work hard and play hard. So I try to.
You are. You travel a lot.
I try to take advantage of opportunities to travel for sure. Active. I'm one of those people who drank the pickleball Kool-Aid. I love pickleball, golf, swim, bike, run, anything outside. I'm going to take full advantage of it. And I try to build that in. I found, I noticed in my last presidency that when things were getting tough and it felt like the day was just too hard, my executive assistant would often say, "Have you run today?" And I'm going like, "Oh, you're right, I haven't." And I try to figure out a way to squeeze it in. You typically would do it first thing in the morning, but if they're early morning meetings, I wouldn't be able to. And I could just see me dragging during the day or just not focused in a constructive way. And she would always say, do you need a run? Can I put that on your schedule? And I'm like, yes, please. So
just taking those intentional breaks where you step away from your computer and the stress of the day, I think makes you a better employee, honestly.
It does. And I'm, what do they tell you on every flight you get on? Put your mask on before you help those around you. So you've got to take care of yourself. And I think if the golden goose stopped laying eggs, what would happen to the rest? So you got to take care of yourself first and be consistent with that and have some balance to allow that the energy you need for work and to especially to be a leader. I needed the clarity in my mind and the focus of athletic pursuits. The attention to athletic pursuits allowed me to kind of shake off the cobwebs in my head sometimes. So I encourage people to find whatever it is.
Yeah, I think as a leader, when you don't have a healthy life balance with your work, you're sending them the wrong message.
Yes.
And I think it's so critical for a leader to actually not just say it, but do it.
Yeah. And, I think that's something, if I could, the pandemic, I think, brought that out for a lot of people, that bringing home to work, because for a while, home was work. And that could, and for many, there was a separation. Home was home and work was work. And the pandemic made home and work the same. And
true.
and I think that probably has made it, that's a positive, I think, that came out of the pandemic.
I can see that.
Make some lemonade here. Because there's hardly a separation now in most settings between work and home. And there's a recognition that people are bringing home to work, and they're bringing all of those issues that they could hide before, because when they left home, they didn't bring them. And when home and work became one, now they're back at work. Home is still there, and those pressures of what's going on at home. And good organizations recognize that, and good leaders recognize that, and allow some grace for what's going on. So, and I think that's helping some with the work-life balance.
Oh man, I do think I saw a real shift in that.
Yeah.
And, I love that. Even, in me, and at that point in time, and when you just think about what are your priorities, and are you giving your staff the right, days to have mental health days, and be able to recoup if they need to, if something at home is not going well.
I never knew I had a senior vice president who had an ailing mother at home. I mean, I knew his mother was ailing, and I knew that he and his wife had a big role. I had no idea she lived with them. And he couldn't come back to work when we were asking people to come back to the office, because he was afraid that he would take something home to her.
That makes sense.
And I was like, whoa, how long is it? 2 years. His mother had been living with them, and they've been kind of the primary caregivers. And I didn't know until the pandemic, when he said, I just can't come back right now. It's too frightening. I'll do whatever I can do to work remotely, and I'll try to come, sometimes, but I'm afraid I will take something home to my mom. And I never knew that. So, yeah.
Well, that leads me to a really great question.
Cool.
Now, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of leadership advice at the beginning of your career, what would it be?
I think don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure, what is it? First attempt in learning, I think it is, FAIL, first attempt in learning.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah. Setbacks provide learning opportunities, and don't be afraid of them. I mean, obviously, don't make failure every day, but don't be afraid to have failures. Failure is trying something new and learning from it, and gaining and hopefully incorporating some new insights and skill sets to make the next attempt or the next effort better. So I think not be so afraid of failure.
I love that. And I think that comes from people who have perfectionism, right?
Yes.
Maybe the way they grew up, how, they were parented, that basically told them that failure is not okay, and you have to be perfect. Unless you're perfect, you're not accepted.
Along with that learning, I think not being afraid of failure is having a growth mindset. Always looking for a better way to build a mousetrap. Always looking for a different way, a different approach to make it better. That achiever comes out, I think, sometimes. And so not being afraid to fail, and having a consistent growth mindset, I think, are two. You asked for one, but I gave you two.
I like both of them, and I think they need to go hand in hand, honestly. Right? I mean, you wouldn't want someone, like you said, to fail every day, but you don't want somebody not to achieve because their fear of failure.
Yes.
And I mean, how many companies fail and then fail and fail, and then it's on the fourth one that they become, millionaire, billionaire, and it seems like every one of those has a great story of how they did things wrong, but they learned from it, and then they pivoted, and they figure out, like I always say, is it's learning best practices, but it's creating better practices. So good. Thank you so much. We would love to know how someone could connect with you to learn more about your coaching and consulting services, because I would highly, highly recommend people reach out to you. I think that you would be a real gift to their organization, both nonprofit, for-profit, whoever's listening to this. I know you. I've known you 16 years. I know you personally. I think the world of you. You know how to dance too. You know how to have fun. We love that 80s band, and we're groupies.
I don't dance as well as you do, but I try.
I think you're great, but I think that you would add so much value to any organization. So if you could please share about that.
Sure. So any dance floor you could find. No. The easiest way is probably email forsuccess@drcheryllovell.org, forsuccess@drcheryllovell.org. My website is drcheryllovell.org, and I'm definitely on LinkedIn, and pretty active with a lot of tips about leadership, a lot of tips about working effectively in teams, and a lot of tips about thinking about yourself as an employee, as a staff member or a team member, and how you can build your capacity for new roles and opportunities through understanding your strengths.
Oh, that would be enormous.
Pretty active on LinkedIn, but for success at drcheryllovell.org.
Love that. Well, thank you for being here today. I've had so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you for all your kind words, because you know they're all the same for you as well, what I think of you. So
love
thank you.
Love you more. Thank you for joining us today on Empower Hour. I hope you're leaving with fresh inspiration and practical insights to fuel your work. Remember, every challenge you face is a stepping stone towards impact. If you found this episode helpful, please follow us and share it with others. Keep making a difference and lifting others up. And I'll see you next time.